Welcome back. Well, now that the torque tube's done, we're gonna have to work on the radius links, I think. That way we can get the rear all tied up and rolling from when we get the tires and the rims, so we can get all that mounted and stuff like that. But I think that we're at a very good place. I'm really pleased with the progress and where we're at right now. So that's a good thing. Lots to do. Just a matter of what to do and when to do it. I mentioned in the torque tube video that I'm going to need to get a little lathe or something like that. I mentioned a lot to go into a machine shop, but I figured I'd go ahead and get me one. That's just a Harbor Freight deal, but I've used them before and they are pretty good for what I need them for. So that's going to be a big asset for us to play around with and do what we need to do. So made a nice little spot for that. Yesterday I went ahead and put these little corner pieces on back here just to help stiffen that up, because once we do our radius arms, they're going to shoot up through here, and that's going to secure the back really well. So we got these two pieces here in the back that I got on. I got our little end caps on both sides here, and I went ahead on both sides and got some corner gussets just to stiffen that up even more. It's probably overkill, but I think peace of mind, I'm guessing. So that's 75% welded up, all those. So once we get everything stripped down, then we'll get everything else that's tacked up or not all the way welded. We'll get all that welded up. So that'll be a fun time for that before we send that to powder coat. But yeah, I mean, I'm pleased with the progress. Thank you all for your comments and everything that's coming across, emails, whatever. I do read them and I appreciate them. I try to respond to all of them that come across. But yeah, this is a fun little project here. So I guess, I guess let's start on with our two rear existing arms. We're going to only utilize these two bolts that go to the axle. We're not using rear shock, so we'll probably round these off here in the end. But they are straight. This is where our rears mount at. So with them being straight, if you do your line straight up, it's going right through the motor. And the way that they're tweaked like this, it shoots the rod up here by the spark plugs. So we're going to do two cuts, probably one right here in the middle of the finger that's going to bend it that way, and then one on the bottom that's going to bring it down, and we're going to shoot straight up to right here. So I guess we'll go ahead and figure one out. Try to explain a little bit what I was talking about. You can see that we have our two mounting spots here that go right in here to the axle. So I'm going to get this close so you can kind of see the front's touching, or the back's touching, and the front's off from the holes probably about 3/4 of an inch. But you can kind of see where we're lined up through here. So we're going to end up cutting right back here on this tube to bring this over. And then once we get that kind of over where we need it, we can go ahead and bolt it in, and then we can kind of see where we need to drop it down, and we'll cut underneath it so it'll pivot down, and then we should be lined up pretty close. And then we'll do our tubing sleeves through the frame like we did for the front arms, and then we'll repeat it on the other side. So I guess first I need to just make me a pie cut here. That way I can bend this over so we can get this bolted into the rear, and then we'll be able to tweak it where we want it. We have our factory weld seam here, so we pulled 1.25 inches off, and we made just a mark that goes around 3/4, probably to the top right here to give us a little bit of room. We're going to cut it and then bend it, try it, and then if we have to cut more, we'll cut some more until we get it to where we need it, and then we can do our reverse cut. So yeah, I don't know. I guess worst case we'll weld it back. I don't know. It should work. You can see we got this cut through here, and we left the back a little sleeve on, so we should be able to bend that. This is what I was talking about earlier. Here's our two mounts. This is for the rear shocks and I think the rear spring, stuff like that, since we're not going to be using that. So we'll probably end up just cutting off this some like this, round it out a little bit, just to clean it up a little bit. But I think we're going to go ahead and try to bend this, see if we have enough room. And if not, we'll just keep doing a little bit of cuts until we get to the bend that we need. Well, I just barely bent it, and I can see it wasn't enough. So we're going to do a little bit more out of this. All right, so now you can see we kind of have about an 1/8 inch out. So, okay, got it bent. I don't think that's enough, but let's see how it looks in the car. Let's see. Nope, don't touch it. Get off. Yep. Let's do some more. Well, we ended up taking out about a 1/4 inch, pretty much on the front flat, and then we just kind of tapered it back, so it's kind of like a small Pac-Man cut. So we'll go ahead and get this in here and see what we can do here. There's one there, one there. Okay, so that's good there. Now, if you kind of look down through here, you can see we're probably 4 inches, 4.5 inches to the top of this, and we need to be right at the top. So we're going to end up cutting right here on the top to bring this end up so we can get it kind of close to up to here. You can kind of see where we're bolted in there. We got our pie cut. This used to just go straight through here, so we bent it over, and you can kind of see that we are pretty low, so we need to cut the top this way, and then it'll pivot up that way to line us up to the top of the frame rail. So we're kind of like this one right there. And then we're lucky there's nothing on the other side of that. We're really close to that cross member. That is bent a little bit, so we might have to heat that up and bend it back. So I really don't want to put our spacer, our tubing in through that way with our bolts. So we'll fix that, but main concern now is to cut it to bring this up. All right, we did our pie cut from the top this time down to the bottom, about 1.5 inches from where it's at. The old cut, we got our handy Touratech straps up here. And let's see if we can get this. All right. So that one there. Okay. Now let's trying to line up our. That's pretty good right there. All right. So now you can see we have a good angle all the way up to the front. Now you can. This is our pie cut from the side, where we kept the metal in the back, and this one we pie cut all the way around and left the material on the bottom, so it would squeeze up this way. So you can see, not too drastic, or bend that way is, but that's what's needed for us to clear this tank. And then we run up this way, we're about right where we need to be. So I guess really my next bit, I don't want to weld it in the back until we get this part in, so this is secure exactly where I need it to be, and then we can weld up the back. So I'm going to mark our center hole, cut out our little support around through this, then mark our frame to get our support tube in, then we'll put the bolt in, and then we can weld up the rear. Well, hopefully you can hear me. I think it's like lawn care day or something in here or something, I don't know. So I'm making my spacers that go through the frame for the front mounts, And like last time, super tight tolerance. I had the wrong one, and it won't go in. The threads will go in. It's really tight. You could hammer it; it would work. Last time, I had to take like a Dremel and like a stone wheel and try to run through it with the drill bit and everything else. It was a nightmare. I bought a reamer for the drill press and just did one to see how it worked. And I mean, it's great. So it'll save a lot of time and heartache. So I'm going to hook this one up and I'll show you how it works, but much better. Perfect. I'm going to try to tell you real quick before the lawnmowers come back, these tail ends, which was for the shocks and the springs, we're not going to use. So we're going to cut this piece off here and kind of round it out and clean it up. That way it'll make it look a lot nicer. So go ahead and start cutting this and clean it up. This is the stock rear end with the spring mount and shock mount, something, I don't know. But we're using these two, so we wanted to cut this off. And I think that looks way better. Just kind of clean it up a little bit, rounded the edges. Once it's all painted, I think it'll blend in really well. But there's no sense to have this extra bit out there because we're not going to use anything for it. Got all of our cuts cleaned up. Got our old brake line bracket holes cleaned up because we're going to end up just welding those up before we get everything powder coated. So yeah, I think that looks pretty good. Trying to get all the metal work and everything done. So once I plug up the welder, I can get everything done on one shot. But yeah, I think that looks pretty good. I'm pleased with that. Much cleaner. Well, we got both holes in the frame cut out on both sides. Tubing fit. So we're going to go ahead and throw this arm in, get that bolted in, and then we're going to weld up both sides, and hopefully it'll work well. Once we get this welded in, then we can weld our two pie cuts that are in the actual arms, and well, then that's it, really. So go ahead and get this one in, and we'll go from there. You can't see me, but I can see you. I'm just hooking in the rear, putting the two bolts in the rear of this arm here real quick. Make sure my tube is in the right spot here. There we go. Let's put our wood piece in. Oh man, those threads look gunky. All right, let's try that again. Here, okay. Look good there. All right, let's see. Probably gonna, no, maybe not. I was gonna say I'm blocky, but maybe a little bit. Oh, I gotta be a contortionist here. All right, we got our 2 tubes welded in, probably 50% mostly. It'll be a lot easier once I get the tank off and flip the body when we do our finished welding, but plenty strong now. We're not gonna have to test it or anything. So we'll get this arm back in, bolt it up, and start welding our little pie cuts. And we'll see what that is. So let's hope this thing fits, right? Hey, look there. All right. Ooh. Well, that's a good thing. Let's get this tightened up. And I guess, I don't know how, if we need to put bolts on the back or not. Maybe we should, just to be safe. All right, that's tight enough there. Let's see, do I have bolts? 1, 2. So I'm not going to torque these down or anything like that. Or put, yeah, we're pretty good. Let's make sure this is all squared up just right. You know how that heat does. So this whole radius thing, I mean, for what it is, it went really smooth. And then maybe that's because I've had to think about it for, well, since we did the fronts of how I was going to do this. You never know until you really start it, but I think overall it went really smooth. I didn't really have any issues. The only slight issue was the holes in the front where the tube went through. We kind of had to angle them because the fronts of these were angled. I was going to heat them and bend them back, but I read that a lot of people, when they did that, it made it brittle, and then they've had some that cut or snapped. So maybe it's angled like this. It's aerodynamics. We'll go with that. So here's our rear, bolted in, 2 pie cuts up to our angle. You can kind of see how it angles back. So when the air comes this way, it's going to, like that, it's going to make us quicker. That's what we're going with. So yeah, I think that looks really cool. Kind of hard to see with the lift, but that's going to stiffen up really good. So, all right, I guess now we're weld up these bad boys. This is bent where it needs to go. Let's just get a few tacks around here. Woo! Make you dance. Ow! Damn. There it was. Got it. All right. So we'll get 90% of this welded, and then when we do our final welding, there's a little spot on the bottom. We'll clean those, or we'll finish welding that up, just like everything else. All right, none back there. All right, so we got this side majority welded up and installed. That gives us a really good stance and some good support for that rear end. I do like our little nubs. I think that turned out really good. So, all right, I'm gonna go ahead and do the exact same thing on the left side and get some stuff cleaned up, and then I'll show you what we got. It's always nice when you have something to do and it works out really well the first time. This was pretty straightforward. Plus, it was nice to use our existing 36 Ford arms with just some slight modifications. Not too difficult, but this really is going to stiffen up the back. I really wanted to get this done before I got the wheels and tires because, as soon as I mount them, I want to put them on and see what they look like. Probably take them back off just so we don't mess them up while we're doing everything else. And it's easier to get around than those big bulky tires, but I like it, man. It looks good. It looks really complete now. So, I don't know what the next video is going to be yet. I'm still debating. Excuse me. Jeez, still getting over from being sick. We're still waiting on a radiator, so that's holding up that. I don't want to cut the top of the tank until we have the exact placement of that, so I can kind of brace the wall with the actual cut of the tank. Maybe we'll work on the exhaust. That'd be kind of fun. I like building exhausts. Yeah, so I appreciate you all coming back to watch these. Hope you're enjoying them. If you are, send me a comment. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe, man. I appreciate it. But that's really it, I guess, for this one. Went pretty good. I'm pleased. So see you next time.